There's a lot of people saying a lot of things. But in the end, you gotta listen to yourself. You bled me dry, and you still want more?
I am a promoter. That is what I do.
The way you sing is God-given, so there can't be nothing wrong with it.
Are you ready to fly?
I'm ready to fly.
Elvis, rated PG-13, Friday.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maddie. Welcome to Elvis Chronicles. In this episode, we are going to take a deep dive into the Elvis movie. We're going to review fact versus fiction. I'm also going to tell you my honest opinion about the movie. And we're going to discuss whether or not Baz Luhrmann himself was caught in a trap. Here's what the director Baz Luhrmann got right. Casting Austin Butler as Elvis. And I know a lot of you will say, and have said before, that Austin looks nothing like Elvis, or nobody can be Elvis but Elvis. And my response to you is, well, duh. Nobody can be Elvis but Elvis. I get that. But Austin came pretty dang close. And it's not just the mannerisms or the dance moves that he captured so beautifully. For me, it was the voice. His voice just got a few octaves deeper throughout his life. And also, a lot of it had to do with the mood that he was in, how much sleep he got, what kind of medication he was taking. So a lot of factors went into the voice of Elvis, and Austin did a brilliant job capturing that. And I do believe that Austin deserves an Oscar. Another element that I loved was the recreation of Beale Street. Some of the Beale Street scenes were my absolute favorite. And it really does help you put history into context. I have been to Beale Street before in Memphis, Tennessee, and you do have to use your imagination a lot regarding what Beale Street was like back in the early 1900s. Because the city has gone through a lot of recessions, and it's, even though it's kind of a tourist trap and they do try to recreate Beale Street a little bit, it's still not completely authentic. So I absolutely loved those Beale Street scenes, and I loved also the cars that Elvis was driving, and also the style. I mean, I think that they partnered with Prada in recreating the styles that Elvis wore throughout his life, and they were spot on with those outfits. Another thing that I noticed Baz Luhrmann did was that he incorporated actual quotes from Elvis's interviews into the dialogue. I'll just give you one example of how Baz did this. There's a clip at the beginning of the movie during Elvis's early career when Elvis is expressing his frustration about all of the negative press that he's receiving. And he is talking about all of the crazy rumors that are being spread about him, like the fact that he smokes marijuana or that he even shot his mother. Now, these are all actual rumors that were being spread about him at the time, and that were even addressed by an interviewer in 1956, just after his controversial performance of Hound Dog. And so I'll play that clip, and there's also another interview that he gave in Florida of 1956, when an interviewer is asking him how he feels about the term Elvis the Pelvis. And in response, Elvis says, "That is one of the most childish expressions I've ever heard." So he actually did say that, and it was shown in the movie, not during an interview, but just incorporated into the dialogue. So I will play those two actual clips of Elvis speaking to the interviewers.
What about the rumor that you once shot your mother?
Well, I think that one takes the cake. I mean, that's about the funniest one I've ever heard.
Where'd that one come from? Have you any idea?
I have no idea. I can't imagine. When you mentioned it to me, it's the first time I ever heard it.
Is that right?
First time I ever heard it.
Well, there's another one, too, you may not have heard before. Several newspaper stories hinted that you smoked marijuana to hit the bottle in order to work yourself into a frenzy while singing. What about that?
I don't know. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm trying to make the best of it. Where did you get the name Elvis the Pelvis? From somebody just like the character that's writing this article here. Do you have any idea who? No, sir, I wish I knew. I don't know. Of course, I don't like to be called Elvis the Pelvis, but I mean, it's one of the most childish expressions I've ever heard coming from an adult. Elvis the Pelvis, but if they want to call me that, I mean, there's nothing I can do about it, so I just have to accept it. It's like you got to accept the good with the bad with the good. Okay.
I do have to say that the end scene of Elvis playing Unchained Melody was my absolute favorite part, and I do hope that it has the power to make up for any of the flaws that I felt were there throughout the movie. It actually ended exactly how I wanted it to. I was actually thinking, how cool would it be if they ended the movie with Unchained Melody and did a montage of his life while he was singing it. So the fact that it ended exactly how I wanted it to just blew me away. Now let's talk about some of the cons to the movie. The main one for me being that it was narrated by Colonel Tom Parker. And here's why it didn't work for me. I felt extremely disoriented at the beginning of the movie. Even though I went into the theater knowing how the movie was going to begin, it was still so disorienting for me because the movie is called Elvis, and you don't even get introduced to Elvis until 5 or even 10 minutes in. So whenever you have the villain being the narrator of any story, it does create a barrier between the audience and the protagonist. In this case, the protagonist being Elvis. And I was kind of gripping my chair. I was like, oh no, I'm not sure if the audience cares enough about Elvis right now. So perhaps I'm wrong. I really want to know what you thought about Colonel Parker narrating the movie, whether you thought it was a detriment. And for me, unfortunately, it just didn't vibe. Also, I'm wondering if the movie would have been better as a limited Netflix series, because I know that Baz had a hard time fitting in, all of the important events of Elvis's 42 years of living. And I do know that there is a 4-hour extended cut of footage that he just couldn't incorporate into the movie. But especially at the beginning of the film, so many important life events happened within a minute. And, like his mom died, and then he was in the army, and then he was making movies, and that was like all happening within 5 minutes. I do feel that the beginning of his life should have been explored a little bit more. And also, here's one other thing that just didn't work for me. They either showed Elvis being nervous, angry, or grieving. And although Elvis did experience those emotions throughout his life, he was so much more multifaceted than that. One element of Elvis that they did not capture at the beginning of the movie was Elvis's playfulness. He was a jokester at heart, and he was enjoying his fame. I do know that he did suffer from severe anxiety, and he was worried that his fame would just disappear. But with that mindset came his ability to enjoy every second of his fame as much as he possibly could. And so they did not capture Elvis's playfulness and his soul as well as I thought that they could have. I don't believe that it was Austin's fault. I just believe that it was the script's fault. One scene that just absolutely irked me was the moment when he gets into a dispute with his mom, and he storms out of Graceland in his car and zooms past his fans, almost like running them over in anger and frustration. And I don't know about you, but that just did not feel good to me because that did not suit Elvis's persona in real life. He loved his fans. He took the time to communicate with his fans. There are multiple accounts and pictures and footage even showing Elvis stopping outside of the gates of Graceland to connect with his fans and allow them to take pictures of him, and he signed their autographs, and he was really friendly and really gracious. And he knew that without his fans, his life would not be possible. I know that they did show Elvis going into the audience and kissing the women, and that was supposed to show his admiration for his fans. But I do feel that they could have done a better job depicting how much he loved his fans. Perhaps they could have just shown one scene of him giving a car to a random stranger, because he did that in real life. And that scene was so unfortunate for me. What did you guys think about that scene? Did you think that it was accurate? Did you hate it like I did? Let me know. Of course, there were just some scenes that absolutely did not happen, especially in the Vegas years, and even before that in the '68 special, when they fooled Colonel Parker into thinking that it was going to be a Christmas special up until the very last minute. That did not happen. It is true that Colonel Parker wanted the special to be Christmas themed, but they did not go to those lengths to fool or trick Colonel Parker. In the movie, during Elvis's Vegas years, we see Elvis calling out the Colonel on stage for being an undocumented citizen and being so angry about it because he learns that that's the reason why he cannot tour overseas. So that did not happen in real life, although there is something interesting that did happen on the night that Elvis fired Colonel Parker. He had a show in Vegas, and it was extremely erratic. There was one point where he jumped on Lamar Fike's back, and Lamar gave him a piggyback ride across the stage. And although he did not call out Colonel Parker personally, he did call out the hierarchy of the Hilton Hotel, and even calling out Conrad Hilton himself. And you can tell that he was just so done with the powers that were controlling him.
This next song is dedicated to the hierarchy, the staff of the Hilton Hotel. I'm the king of the jungle, they call me Tiger Man. 'Cause you know how I hate this damn song. I really do. They say.
Before we blame everything that we didn't like about the movie on Baz Luhrmann, we do have to address something, and that is Elvis Presley Enterprises. It was briefly mentioned in the movie when Colonel Parker was signing the contract with Elvis and his parents. He did establish Elvis Presley Enterprises, essentially to turn Elvis into a brand. It's very common these days for celebrities to brand their names, but in 1956 that was unheard of. However, it was a genius move on Colonel Parker's end because it did make Elvis even more marketable than entities like Disney at the time by placing his name on any gadget that you can think of. And Colonel Parker did receive 50% commission on the merchandise that was sold for Elvis. And Elvis Presley Enterprises is still up and running to this day. They are owned by the Elvis Presley Trust, and they manage its assets. So they also own the trademark to Elvis's name. And if you think about it in this context, it really does put Baz Luhrmann in a trap. I do believe that there was some kind of an agreement between the production company, Warner Brothers, and Elvis Presley Enterprises. I don't believe that Baz Luhrmann had a choice in going that route unless he wanted to face legal action from Elvis Presley Enterprises, because they are pretty well known for being litigious if anyone misuses Elvis's name. I have noticed that if you want to buy any merchandise from the movie, you do have to buy it through EPE. So when you look at it in that context, it does make you wonder how different the movie would be if EPE was not such a powerful entity that was probably controlling every element of the movie. Regarding how Elvis should look, and also regarding which people in Elvis's life could not have been added in the movie. If you go to Graceland, you do realize how controlling EPE is over the image of Elvis Presley. You don't see any pictures of him in his later years because he was a little bit heavier set and bloated, and that's just not a part of the image that EPE wants to incorporate into Elvis's legacy. So if your biggest critique of the film is, why wasn't this certain person in the movie, or why didn't they show this event in Elvis's life, before you blame Baz, we do have to consider that he might have been caught in a trap with Elvis Presley Enterprises. And I do hope that this film has the capacity to bring a new generation of Elvis fans. I'm not sure if it does, because I'm way too attached to it in order to make an objective judgment. So I am curious to hear from you, whether or not you're a new Elvis fan, whether or not the movie sparked interest in learning about his life and his legacy. So please leave a comment below and let me know if the movie did the trick for you. All in all, I enjoyed the movie, but I want to know if you enjoyed the movie. Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe for weekly Elvis content. Thank you very much.